The painting behind me took me over 300 hours to complete over the course of 3 months, but it's finally finished. So let me take you back to the beginning. Before I can even start painting, I have to create a reference image, similar to this painting that I made, only on a much larger scale. So I set up a new scene with a bunch of fruit in a bowl on a carpet on like a credenza or something, and sort of got the lighting just right and took a whole bunch of pictures, and that's what I'm going to be working from for this project. I didn't show it in the video, but after staining the canvas a nice browny orange, I started to add my sketch to the canvas. Because I have a reference photo, I can match the photo dimensions to that of the canvas and use the outside edges as well as a vertical and horizontal center line to help establish my proportions. I use burnt umber thinned with Gamsol to make the sketch, and I do this because paint is too thick out of the tube, so I thin it with solvent to make it paint for longer. Keep them guessing. Which has a ton of benefits, but I'll leave that for later. Now, you might be thinking, John, what the hell is this? And all I have to say is trust the process, okay? Man, I'm doing it legit, okay? This is how they did it back in the 16th century. You could also use oil to thin your paint, but that makes it fatter and in conflict with the fat over lean rule. It also makes the paint take longer to dry. Solvent both dries faster and makes the paint more lean, making it perfect for this stage of the painting. Although it is a toxic chemical, so use it or don't use it. I mean, honestly, it's not for everyone. Once I have the first basic shapes of the composition laid out, I start to add the first bits of color. I'm not spending much time mixing the exact tones that I need, but instead quickly massing in an average color for each section that allows me to better judge future colors as I move forward. That's the idea anyway. Frankly, I just keep painting and pushing forward until I'm satisfied with the result. So at this point in the process, and keep in mind, this is a developing process. You know, I'm just now starting making paintings of my own composition, and therefore I'm kind of making it up as I go, following some instruction that I've gotten in the past, but just trying to see what works. So this process is definitely going to develop over time, but this is my starting point anyway. We've gotten to this point, which is basically I have put the design on the canvas and I like its orientation. I like the way that the objects interact with each other. Basically, it's close to the photo composition. Not exactly, but pretty dang close. I then went in with some base colors. These are not the colors of the actual object, but they're close enough. They're a little bit closer than the imprimatur of the orange base color that I put on and the brown under painting layer. They bring us one step closer, but not exactly all the way there. And that's where this next step comes in, where we tackle each individual object, starting with the lowest, the furthest back, or the area that everything is on top of, the table. So I'll start by painting this desk. That way the carpet lays on top of the desk and the bowl lays on top of the carpet and everything looks good. Can it just look good? At this point, it's time to start developing some real detail and committing to the design I've laid out. Luckily, wood is a material I've painted a few times before, so I was pretty comfortable with this portion of the painting and was able to knock it out in a couple of days. Focusing on the knots and cracks that make this wood unique, letting the brush really help me make that natural wood grain, and allowing the cast iron furnishings to sink into the shadows, accented only by a few spots of light. Making sure to paint the dark areas as thin as possible. Anyway, who really cares? You're probably just wondering what I did with all the lemons, so let's roll the lemon segment. When life gives you lemons, squeeze the juice, okay? And if you're wondering why no orange juice, well, I ate all the oranges. Anyway, I lay in a rough version of the carpet's design using ultramarine blue and a little bit of black, in some cases adding the design and in others leaving negative space for future shapes. Luckily, none of this matters at all. I'll eventually decide that I need to change the color below all of these details and I paint over almost all of it. This is just the start of all the troubles that this carpet gives me, but in the moment I'm excited about the prospect of finishing this carpet faster than I thought I would. So I noticed when a little bit of the blue mixed with some of the brown that I'm using to paint the outside edge of the carpet, something kind of good happened. It actually mixed into a color that was better and closer to the reference that I'm using and just generally looks better. So what I'm gonna do is take a little bit of blue, mix it into each of my pre-made browns on my palette and start working again with just better colors. Love it when that happens. Although this was a positive sign and spirits seemed high, it wouldn't last long, which is funny because the carpet was a bit of a last-minute addition to the scene anyway. Originally, I envisioned just the wooden bowl of fruit sitting on the table, but when I saw the scene outside of my head, it needed something else, and the solution was under my feet. Normally, that wouldn't be a problem, in fact encouraged. However, carpets are notoriously hard to paint. Historically, painting carpets was used as a way to mog other artists and show artistic talent and technical skill, and for good reason. They're not easy. From perspective and rolling fabric to texture and light, this carpet is the entire reason why this painting took multiple months to complete, and it was starting to get to me. I knew going into this painting that the carpet was going to be difficult, but I did not think it was going to be this difficult. I've spent probably the last 2 weeks trying to paint the carpet, spending most of my time in these 2 outside rectangles of the carpet, just trying to figure out how the hell I'm going to tackle this thing. And I think I've finally landed on some sort of a solution, which is I'm going to be placing tiny little dots of paint, different colors and different shades to help create that carpet texture and depth. Luckily, I think I really only have to do it on this outside beam here. The inside's a lot more connected. There's less, individual fabric that you can see poking through. But obviously, there's still a ton of work to be done on the rest of the carpet. I just needed to figure out some way to create this texture before I went and tackled the whole thing. Anyway, that's what I'll work on today. So let's get back into it. It's so funny and horrible for me to watch this back. Once again, you'll see me attempt a strategy to paint this carpet, only to give up on the process halfway through, wasting time and figuring out nothing about the technique. Sometimes this can be a good thing, however, in this case, it was not. Within this time lapse in the same painting session, you can see me add these small dots and then quickly remove them. I hardly even gave this a try before going back to my default, the comfort zone that has worked for so many of my other paintings, despite the fact that I know it will not work this time. But I just continue on, adding details that will be covered up by a future layer and then repainted again and again. Eventually, I stopped talking to the camera in between sessions as I felt almost nothing was being achieved, and I even skipped recording some sessions. Needless to say, it was getting harder and harder to get to the easel and paint as I just didn't know what I was doing and how to fix it. I'm just not motivated at all to finish this painting. I don't know how to paint the carpet and I just keep painting over it, and I don't even know if it's looking better or worse. I mean, there's a reason why this was a challenge back in the day. It still is a challenge now. But I'm just gonna keep trying and seeing if I can do it. Now, I don't want to be dramatic, but I'm like Sisyphus at this point with this boulder. I keep pushing my paintbrush against the canvas, but no progress is ever made. My timeline to finish this painting needs to be measured on a geological scale. Some fossils have been developed in the time it's taken for me to paint this. If RuneScape had a painting skill, I'd have grinded to 99 by now. You could mine a block of obsidian in Minecraft with your bare hands before I finish this carpet. Or read the entire Harry Potter book series, including the Fantastic Beasts. People have watched the entire One Piece anime before I finish this carpet. Frodo and Sam walk to Mordor. By the time I finish this carpet, you'll have gotten married, had kids, divorced, remarried, and retired. Anyway, my point is it's taking me a long time. So it's been a while since I last talked to the camera. My hair is like 5 inches longer. I've been working on like just the carpet for like a month and a half, around 2 hours a day, painting and repainting, trying to figure out how to create this texture and depth within the carpet without it just looking really flat and cartoony. And I think I've brought it to a state where it looks decent. I'm not completely happy with it at all, and I plan to paint on it more in the future. But I think at this point, I really want to move on to the bowl of fruit and just bring it up to the same level of completeness that everything else in the scene has. And then hopefully that'll help me see what's wrong with the rest of the painting, or maybe it'll just make everything look better. Whatever the case is, it's time to finally paint this bowl of fruit. At this point, I was desperate for a win. After months of some pretty clear struggles, I can finally work on the actual focal point of this painting, the bowl of fruit. Honestly, this change in subject alone has reignited my excitement for this painting, but important to notice, I know what I'm doing when it comes to these subjects. I've painted fruit in the past. When you know what you're doing or how to approach a task, procrastination and anxiety around starting seems to go away. Moral of the story, keep pushing through the hard times. They're only hard while unfamiliar, and there's only one remedy for that. So I mixed up a few colors for the oranges, a few colors for the lemons, and a few for the bowl itself and got to work. Then I heard a knock at my door. It turned out to be this rather large package, something new for the studio, something that hopefully will allow me to kick back and relax while I observe my paintings from a distance. Well, at least that was the idea, and then when I opened the box, this thing came out, and we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. The new couch. Oh my god, it's tiny. Okay, so this is supposed to expand over the next 4 days. So, whew, it's a little firm. I'm gonna put a time lapse on this and hopefully nothing goes wrong. Whew. Let's do it. Also, I found this at a thrift store and it holds your brushes. Never had one of those, so pretty stoked on it. I also picked up this tray, which I think will be perfect for my palette. I'll give you one guess where you think that package came from, and it rhymes with redo, as in I had to redo this carpet so many times. Okay, enough about the carpet, it's time to finish this fruit. Essentially, all I'm doing at this point is making the darks darker and the lights lighter, adding that specular highlight on the fruit to really make them pop. Okay, I think it's time to add the leaves and stems. Here's a quick tip 9 out of 10 artists don't know about. If you mix yellow and black, you get what's called olive green. Without any green, we get green. And that's how I'm gonna mix all the greens for this painting. Anyway, I could use Viridian green or whatever other green I have, because I have them, but I do think if I mix it with yellow and use this sort of olive variant of green, which is actually technically just a low saturation, low value yellow, I think we'll get a little more cohesion. So that's what we're doing with this guy. The more you know. Anyway, before I start with the leaves and stems, I'm going to use the background color, which is ivory black, to redefine their shapes, and while I'm at it, I'll fill in the rest of the background with another layer to keep it all flat and consistent. Then back to the leaves for more details, typically starting with the darkest area first, progressively working towards the lights, blending when I want a soft edge, and using thicker, confident strokes for harder edges. Things were going well, but just as I was adding the finishing touches to the bowl, I was pulled away. It's been almost 10 days since I've last worked on this painting, but for good reason. I actually took a break and went to Europe. I've had this trip planned forever, but it kind of snuck up on me and I wasn't able to finish the painting before that. So I took it as an opportunity to, I was gonna go to museums anyway, check out a bunch of museums, take a look at how these other painters tackle textures like carpet and fruit and wood, and just generally get inspired to finish this thing off. I've been working on this painting for multiple months now. It's the largest project I've ever taken on. It's the most detailed, and I'm struggling a little bit to get through to the finish line. But I think I got what I needed. I saw what I needed to see, and I'm ready to bring this thing home. See if I can do it. I think I found another way to make the carpet look like a carpet, so I'm just gonna try and trust the process. It takes a really long time to see the end results, but I'll just keep doing this until I'm done, and hopefully it'll look whatever I want. I don't even know at this point what I want it to look like, but hopefully it'll look like it. Apparently by this point in the process, I had totally forgotten that this is a technique that I had already tried and given up on. Funny how it's not just exposure, but also timing that makes information stick. Anyway, after having visited a few museums and scanning the rooms for carpets, a couple real options emerged. I could follow in the footsteps of Rembrandt in his painting Syndics of the Drapers Guild. However, his skill cannot be understated, and I question my ability to make a realistic carpet in such an abstract manner. And then there's option 2, the series of dots, or really tiny sprigs of carpet fibers, similar to the carpets in The Ambassadors by Hans Holbein, or Still Life with a Lobster, Drinking Horn and Glasses by Willem Kaft, where the dark areas of the carpet are flat and the light areas hold a lot of texture. So with option 2 locked in and in progress, all I had to do was trust the process. It's pretty late. I've been going for a few hours tonight, and recently it's been really difficult to approach the canvas. I've just been dreading each session, and I've been doing any other art project just to avoid working on this painting, and it's mostly because I just, I couldn't figure out this texture. I couldn't make it look the way I wanted to look. But ever since I started sort of really slowing down and picking at the painting in a very detailed way, at least in the lights, I feel better and better about how the painting's looking, and it's been easier to approach the painting and work on it for longer without feeling really burnt out or wanting to just work on something else. So that's good. That's a good sign. I'm going to just keep trying to push with that and bring this painting to a finish line so I can just work on another one. Now, before I show you the final shots, the carpet, and well, what the whole painting looks like, I need to sign it. I could just do that normally. However, I've always loved when artists integrate their signature into their work in some interesting and non-intrusive way. Like when Jan van Eyck added Jan van Eyck was here to the Arnolfini portrait in elegant scripted letters, or Jacques-Louis David signing Napoleon crossing the Alps on the reins of the horse, special shout out to the names on the rocks, or one of my favorite artists and monograms, Albrecht Dürer, who did this all the time but can be seen here in the Feast of the Rosary, where he painted himself holding a paper placard with the date and his monogram AD on it. Don't get me wrong, I love big red signatures too, but some paintings call for a little bit more subtlety, so I spent some time designing my own monogram, then added it as if it were a carving on the wooden credenza, and I'm super happy with how it turned out. With the signature done, I can finally show you what this painting looks like in full. After 300 hours of working on it, it is my pleasure to share with you a bowl of fruit on a carpet, on a credenza, in the abyss. Well, hello, you made it to the end of the video, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and if you want to support me and the stuff that I do, the best way to do it is to just check out this illustrated book of idioms that I wrote. Inside are over 100 hand-drawn illustrations of some of English's most popular expressions, and the goal is for you to guess which one based on my drawing. Like this one, which represents the expression, bad apple. I wouldn't want to eat that. It's gone bad. But if you can't figure it out, all the answers and definitions are at the back. I know it's unrelated to the video, but I still think it's a cool book. It's a fun game that you can sort of play with your friends trying to guess the idiom that I drew. And that's really it. You'll see me in the next one.